What collectibles did people think would make a fortune one day but are now utterly worthless? Model trains. My stepdad never wanted life insurance and assured my mum all of his collectibles would be worth enough for her to live comfortably when he died. Well, he passed last year and she only got $7,000 for most of his collection of train stuff and nobody wanted the rest. He had spent easily over $100,000 over the years and just the trains were insured for $30,000. He also had a big coin collection and she's been selling off that too. Only got a couple thousand for that. She just sold her house and is moving into an apartment, so lucky. She had a nice house and that was paid off. I read that train collecting is now mostly older folks. Younger people just don't have the space or spare money to build to kind of tracks and layouts the older generation enjoyed. So as a result, there is much less new blood into the hobby, so less demand, meaning it has less value. Also, the prices for new ones immediately stop any younger person from getting into it. Also, who has the space for them? You basically need both a house and the ability to give up a whole room for them. I'm a young person into model trains. This exact issue has been plaguing me for my entire life, slowly collecting over the years. I finally set up a layout in my apartment after moving, and now I barely have enough room to get around it. Definitely a hobby that needs space, more than anyone my age can justifiably afford. I think part of that is because in their youth, having a train set was the holy grail of toys. So naturally, as they got older and made money, they got the good stuff. But anyone under 65 never really got a thrill from a train set as a kid. Edit. Plus, those things never worked on the shag carpet of the 70s/80s. Yup, that's what the collectors buying his stuff said. The collectors are old and dying off, and no one else wants the stuff. Went through this in 2019. My parents are both hoarders. My dad always had the plan for when I retire I'm going to sell stuff at flea markets, so he stocked up on inventory. Going along with that, he was buying trains because once I sell all this stuff I will have room to set up a train room. It never happened, and as I was trying to help clean out the basement and garage a massive failure that has greatly affected my mental health and I don't even have to live there, I found trains everywhere I turned. He saved every receipt so as I sold stuff, I could compare what he paid vs what I got. Some things went up hundreds of dollars, people loved the brass trains, and other stuff went way down. All told, we got around 10K, but he spent close to 6 figures. I'm sure when my mum is gone and I'm able to actually clean the house out, I will find more, because he had them hidden in safes, always the cheap ones in the safe. Under stairs, in the rafters. I had a neighbor who bought them obsessively. She would buy books and magazines about them and wasted so much money because she thought the value was going to skyrocket. Her plan was to put her kids through university with the profits. History doesn't repeat, but it sure rhymes. Your story sounds like it's playing out with some Labubu collectors right now. WTF is a Labubu. They made a South Park episode, Wok is Dead. I about pissed myself laughing, especially because my kids had very similar argument about whose Labubu was real. Plot twist, both were presumably fake because they weren't expensive. Beanie Babies was an NFT trial run. Still remember that storific of a husband and wife at divorce court sorting through a pile of beanies they were dividing. Of course you remember it. It's the most infamous Beanie Baby story in the past 30 years. I wonder how they are today and if they still have any babies left. Someone should reach out to them. It's Beanie While. They probably spent more on lawyer fees for just that part than they were ever worth. Took the tags off one. I got people lost. There. Mines. Was a bit funny to watch. I wanted the pig. I wasn't planning on using it to fund my retirement. I still enjoy my ruined pig 25 years later. My ROI has been pretty good. 8-ish. Years of the thing sitting on my desk, occasionally eliciting a smile. I asked my mum if we still had a bin of them in the basement, and she said, I think there's actually 2. She was selling them for 1 or 2 at the family garage sale for years. They didn't move much. The thing that still puzzles me about the Beanie Baby fad is why it hasn't happened again. The ZAC Bissonnette book, The Great Beanie Baby Bubble, does a great job of explaining how the fad and the bubble were artificially created in Naperville. A bunch of buyers and sellers agreed to drive up the price, only to later sell the inflated priced items to other parts of the country. After a few months of priming the pump, media got involved in reporting on how people were making so much money on these limited edition dolls, and suddenly there's a real market for them. Just seems like prior to social media, it would have been a solid plan. Create product with limited editions. Fund an artificial speculator market. Caught media attention of regular people making a fortune. I bet those decorative plate companies were kicking themselves for not thinking of it. Funko Pops and Labubu. I remember at one of the collectibles shows that was taken over by Beanie Babies, someone had an x-ray of two nearly identical Beanie Babies to show that one of them was worth the 500 markup because it had different filling. That's when my little 12-year-old brain realized this is all a scam lol. Even as a kid back then, I remember thinking, why would anyone look at these things as something that would be a good investment? It was just a stuffed animal. In fairness, collectibles are kind of arbitrary, right? How are these different than baseball cards or comic books or Legos or figurines? None of those have any inherent value at all. It's just that we collectively decide something is cool and it thus becomes valuable because enough of us want to collect them. In hindsight, it looks dumb, but it's not really that much dumber than the crazy around various Pokemon or other things right now that people rush to stores for. Most of the things that become valuable are not things. The things that people set out to become valuable. The collector's edition comic of the reset of the DC universe, which came with 24 different covers, won't become valuable because everyone with an interest in the comics bought a copy that went straight in a plastic bag in mint condition. Detective Comics number 14 became valuable because nobody was saving them and they all got read, damaged, and ended up in the bin. Similarly, my dad's collection of newspapers from important dates, Gulf War, Diana dying, 911, etc. won't be worth anything because everyone has a relative with a similar collection. Well, this is it, isn't it? A collectible that sets out to be collectible rarely ends up so. If you see tons of people saying, this will be worth money someday, so I'm going to keep it nice and safe, it generally won't be. Even if it's a limited release, if the majority of people buying them are buying them as collectibles, there's a problem. One of the reasons old toys and comics are collectible and valuable is because they were not saved or kept nice. That's why your grandma's doll that she actually took care of and kept the box for is worth something. She did it because she was fastidious while the other kids tore open the box, which then got thrown away, and played with the doll until it was within an inch of its life. It then also got binned or thrown in a box in a musty attic for the next couple of decades. Things like Pokemon cards can be an exception because they have built-in rarity, randomness, and a strict grading system. Sure, you have that rare card, but you didn't keep it quite nice enough to be super desirable. Even this has volatility. However, my grandmother gave me 4 tea chests of mint-in-box collector's plates when my wife and I got married. She wanted to help us get a good start in life. I lied to her for 20 years. Didn't have the heart to tell her that they were quite literally worthless. That reminds me how I received a partial silver-plated tea set from my deceased grandmother as if it was valuable. If I had the whole set, I maybe could have gotten 100. As presented, it was worthless. My family used to get one of those fancy plate and tchotchke magazines. For some reason we never subscribed. They just came and 8-year-old me loved circling all the ones I was going to get when I was rich. I can't remember the name, but it was full of Thomas Kincaid lamps and Charles Wysocki SP, cat bookends and hummingbird figurines and limited edition music boxes and collectible plates. I always know that was what really rich people bought. Still low-key. Want some of them. Edit. Oh my god, I found it. Unironically might subscribe just to Window Shop. Sometime in the 90s, my dad subscribed to a Christmas Village based on the 1960 Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie. Randomly, throughout the year, various houses and figurines would arrive. We never knew when another would come. Sometimes we'd go years without a delivery, and then bam, Rudolph's bowling alley would be on our doorstep. He still sets it up every year with the grandkids. He must have over 50 buildings. I decided to look at their complete Morgan and Peace silver dollar collection, and I love how they guarantee never to raise the price over the $120 per coin they're charging for the first couple of them. When coins graded very good, like their slabs, say go for around 40 to 60. Collectibles need 2 things. First, to have enough people who want to collect them that there is a real market for them. And second, for enough well-off people to collect them too, to create some level of price demand. Plates feel like those things that a small group collects, but that they don't have a ton of money, or the desire to actually engage in a trading marketplace to make it actually a collectible that makes any financial sense to collect. The people who collect them buy 2, 5, maybe 20 of them, but are content with that amount and to just buy them new randomly. and never go on the market to buy others. Is that where sources come from? But, they're the future. Okay, look, I have this digital image on the internet. And yes, there are millions of copies just like it. But this one is mine. But it's special, because it has code tied to it that identifies it as unique among all other copies of the same image. So because it's unique, it's worth a ton, bro. Every single human being is a unique little snowflake, and most of us are worthless. And yes, I am aware I am underselling the meaning of blockchain. So crypto bros, please fuck off. I know what your crap is, and I don't care. Nah, my stupid picture of a monkey with gold teeth and a beanie is going to be worth millions one day. Just you wait. McDonald's Happy Meal toys. My aunt still has bins of them in the attic. I like to make Happy Meal toys into Christmas ornaments. You use needle nose pliers to pass a nice screw through a candle flame and then sink it into the top of the head or wherever. Then let it cool and string it. They really bring back my kids' childhood and make me smile. Figurines, like Hummels and Precious Moments. The market got saturated. I don't feel like checking, but I sort of wonder how Ladro stuff is doing. When my Mill and Phil bought a pricey house 30 years ago, the real estate agent gave them one that they keep a spotlight on. I dated a guy whose parents had a vacation house in Spain. Their house was absolutely stuffed with Ladro figures and sculptures. I didn't get the pull, but his mother was a genuinely lovely lady, and I hope at least a couple were worth something for her sake alone. You were the only good thing about your son, Shirley. So there are some things JESSI doesn't hate. I can't speak about currently, but when my grandfather passed around 10 years ago, I found a few in his hoard. They sold really well. I made a few grand off a couple each. Others were in the hundreds. None were cheap. That being said, he may have just had better ones though. While he was alive, he was the go-to guy in the area that would buy anything he felt was valuable, but not give a good amount. Like he would help, but only when it helped him too. So I ended up with tons of antiques and collectibles to sell stash when he passed. He was a hoarder, but thankfully not of garbage. It took me years to go through everything, and I still find stuff at times. I live in his house. I had friends who ran comic book stores during the 90s. The collapse in market after the big publishers went all in to cater to collectors rather than comic book readers was crazy. One friend closed up shop, the other went heavy into Magic, the Gathering and Pokémon collector cards to stay profitable. All comic books, not just the 90s. When eBay showed up, it became easy to find the rare collectible issues and my collection lost most of its value. I had over 10.0 comics from the late 60s on. eBay basically nuked the entire collector and antique markets in one go. Some comics are still quite valuable, but it's around half of 1% of what's out there. A guy my wife works with gave me a bag Death of Superman. I told my wife I can't wait to open it and pretended like I was about to open it. She screamed, thinking it was super valuable. She was shocked to learn it was only worth about 10. My teenager into comics pretty hardcore. It's crazy to see the drop-off in values from the 60s, 70s to the 90s. Those 60 seconds comics were read, then passed to your friends until they were trash, or they were thrown out. The 90s comics were bought in their millions. Collectors bought multiple copies, bagged and bought it immediately, then kept for resale. Funnily enough, later, post-crash, issues of things like Spawn are worth a lot more than early issues because the sales were so low. Problem is, people started collecting them. They are easy to find, but 60 seconds kids just treated them like the cheap paper they were. So finding go nick stuff is impossible. The future collectibles will be stuff we currently don't even think about chucking out. On our honeymoon to small-town North Carolina in 1998, an antique shop dealer told us, buy as much depression glass as you can afford. It's like gold. It was the rage back then. Now, thrift shops and stores can even give it away. No one wants it. No, we did not follow his advice. Now people collect uranium glass. That shit does look really cool, but it does overlap with depression glass. The trick is real collectors are wise to the thrift and antique shops that mark up pieces. So they bring a Geiger counter and or flashlight and check ones that are not labeled uranium since they usually go for much cheaper and look similar to UG unless you put them under a black light or check the radioactivity. I have a feeling this is what's going to happen with Funko Pops. Those things are hideous and I feel like their appeal will die off like Beanie Babies. It's literally just trash that's going to end up in the ocean. Depressing as hell. Aren't they already worthless? Funko Pops are just millennial precious moments. My dislike for these stems from the fact that they've infested every brick and mortar store that used to stock actually good figures. There's now literally aisles of this bullshit taking up shelf space. I get it. Businesses have to make ends meet and these things are a guaranteed sell. But man, do I not get the appeal of them at all. They all look the same, which is to say, like a Funko Pop, and only vaguely like the character they're meant to be. And they're just cheap, mass-produced things. Just don't get it. Disney VHS Vault Collection. That damn vault was the moment I turned from a lifelong Disney fan to hating them. And I've never looked back. My kids were very small and had just discovered The Little Mermaid. All they talked about was getting a tape of it to watch. Sucks to be them, it had gone in the fucking vault just a few months previously. I couldn't find it anywhere for a less than hellacious price. I even tried to find it in the library or the video rental store. Figured I would hook to VCRs together and make my own bootleg copy. Nope, every copy had been stolen. I couldn't afford the 400 or so they wanted on eBay. So I had to listen to my kids cry every damn day because Disney execs were greedy bastards causing manufactured shortages to artificially inflate the worth of a kid movie. I still hate Disney all these years later. A mint condition Disney VHS isn't worth millions, but is definitely worth significantly more than what it was bought for. Adjusting for inflation? But there's some dumb Disney adults out there. Not utterly worthless, but the decline in deer-to-cylinder tractor values should have been foreseen. In the late 1990s, there were several enthusiast magazines that were promoting their hobby and encouraging people to collect tractors in lieu of a 400 1000. They saw the value of those tractors going up and assumed it would continue to go up indefinitely. It did not. Many of the common two-cylinders are now trading for half of what they did 25 years ago. As one age of collectors has died off, the next batch of collectors isn't interested in the same tractors anymore. They're more focused on the 1960 as muscle tractors. Never invest in collectibles as a way of storing wealth, particularly not collectibles made in the last 150 years. Only collect them if you personally want them. Any increase in value is a happy bonus, but should not be counted on. This applies for Bic Skylarks and for Beanie Babies. The same could be said for cars. It's all about what people wanted as a kid. My grandpa had a 1927 Cord in his teens 20s, and years later in his 60s he bought and restored the same model he had. He showed it until he died, and for the last few years he was lamenting how them kids are ruining their hobby because cars from the 1950s to 1970s were becoming more popular and people were increasingly upgrading them instead of restoring them. That's what happens. Hobbies evolve. Stamps have fallen out of fashion. Before mobile phones, there was a short phase where coin phones were switched to prepaid cards. Those were considered a new collectible. Many TCGs are dead, and even those that survived have many cards that lost value. The big rule of collecting is generally you don't want to get things made to be collectibles. You want things that people buy, use, love, and break. Then when people are 60, they are willing to pay a buttload for the nostalgia. For those that don't get the reference, OG answer right here. Avon cologne bottles shaped like cars. My mum bought a case of collectible glasses that commemorated the moon landing. Thought they'd be worth a fortune one day. They sat at a closet for decades. I think she ended up selling them at a garage sale for 0.25 a piece. Sucker. The real money in early 70s collectible glasses were the McDonald's glasses. Those are bringing in a sweet 2.5 minus 3.0 now. Anything that people thought would be collectible. If it's collectible, then people are going to hoard it, meaning it's not going to be rare and special. Pumpkins. Last year I invested in pumpkins. They had been going up the whole month of October, and I had a feeling they were going to peak right around January. And bang, that's when I would cash in. Homer, you knucklebeak. I told you 100 times, you've got to sell your pumpkin futures before Halloween. Before Star Wars action figures from 1999's Phantom Menace. The pot flying from 96. That was when I realized I would always open my action figures. Everyone I knew were buying figures to keep stored away. Completely misunderstanding the original carded Star Wars stuff is worth so much because of rarity. Now you can find most stuff, mint on card, for less than original retail. It is absolutely bonkers how many grandmas are passing away with storage units and basements full of boxed Barbie dolls. Also other dolls like Madame Alexander's. For example, In the early 1960s, Disney parks sold 15 dolls of all the first ladies wearing their famous inaugural or portrait gowns. They were available in the gift shops in park areas like Frontierland, Liberty Square, and Main Street for $133.0 each. That is the equivalent of around $1,400.0 in 2025 dollars. They were considered so expensive that little girls weren't ever allowed to play with them. And now there's a glut in the market of mint-condition dolls still in box. They're worth maybe 10-15 each today. And the unfortunate part is that when you finally take them out of the box today, the petroleum-based rubber banding they used to joint the dolls has frequently deteriorated and the heads, arms, and legs just come off. I collect the Madame Alexanders because I just have a thing for them, but they're only for display. And I know how to rejoin and repair them. But dolls, they just didn't hold up in value. Hey, I have my binder and tubes of POGs and slammers proudly on display in my living room. They are going to make a comeback and I'll be able to finally retire. When the price of a stamp went up from 3 cents to 4 or something like that, the old 3-cent stamps were pushed as a real collector's item. 40 years later, there were still so many of them that they were worth 3 cents. People began using them just as regular stamps. They were still valid for postage. Not really a collectible, but encyclopedias were really considered a status symbol and a good investment, at least if you had kids. A set of encyclopedias was $1,600 in 1982. My mum won a set in a raffle and just about lost her mind celebrating. We weren't allowed to touch them without adult supervision and washing our hands first. Not necessarily a fortune, but I took my 1,970 hockey card collection in to be appraised a few years back and found out that 10-year-old me had seriously impacted their future value by not immediately putting them in plastic covers and putting them in a safe deposit box. Remember those? Kind of rustic-looking baskets? People really thought that just mass-produced baskets would somehow be valuable someday. My grandma got way too into that. She had like 80 baskets and even visited their big basket building out in Bumfuck. She has dozens of pictures of her in front of the basket. She used to give them to everyone as Christmas gifts too, thinking they were the height of posh, and we were like, we don't have chickens and don't pick mushrooms, WTF we're going to use this overpriced basket for. It's been like 20 years since this all went down, and she still can't cleanse her spirit of the baskets. All of them? My grandmother collected porcelain dolls, but didn't understand the market and missed the sell window. What we couldn't give away free to other similarly disillusioned doll collectors went straight into a dumpster. Probably mid-5 figures worth of her money was essentially scrap. Let's change gears and talk about the landfill-bound Funko Pops. First day cover stamps. Oh boy, pretty much anything that boomers collected is now worthless. Here's the lesson we learned: when you collect things with the intention of selling them later, someone needs to want to buy them. Very, very basic supply and demand here. Supply boomers have lots of Royal Daltons, collector plates, stamps, and coins. Demand boomers are the only ones who give a fuck about those things. So, when boomers as a generation want to get rid of it all in retirement to free up some cash, who is buying it all? Not Gen X, not millennials, and not other boomers because they are trying to get rid of it too. As an example, one report estimated that 80-90 of the collectible coin market is worth more when used as regular currency or precious metal value than it is being sold to other collectors, i.e., a silver dollar being sold to a collector would get 0.75 as opposed to buying a can of pop with the silver dollar. If your average consumer can collect the thing, it will not net you a profit in 50 years. Collect that stuff if you love it, because it won't turn a profit. Cryptocurrency is going to crash like some of these. Beanie Babies were so popular. People getting divorced would need a mediator to distribute the ex-couple's collections. I personally witnessed grandmothers get in fist fights over limited edition Beanie Babies. The 90s were wild. Most comic books made from the 80s onward. Sure, there's a handful of exceptions to that, but the vast majority of them won't ever be worth anything. No comics made in that time period or newer, not even 50 years from now, will ever be worth what an original Batman or Superman comic is worth. Still waiting on my Ken Griffey Jr. rookie card to appreciate so I can retire. I mean, 0.000001 of baseball cards are worth a fortune. During COVID, people had time to go through their collections in the attic, etc., and interest in collecting surged. Of course, card companies got greedy and the market got saturated again. Some call this time junk wax era too. Depression glass, ruby glass, milk glass. My in-laws gave us Franklin Mint decorative plates, Little Orphan Annie, some others. Proof sets of coins, every year encased in plastic. Uncirculated rolls of Jefferson nickels, each roll in a blue velvet bag with gold tassel worth face value and nothing more. And quarters that were inexplicably painted red, white and blue. Let me tell you, you can't even give those Franklin Mint plates away. That's the thing about collectibles. They're only collectible if someone else wants them. I don't know if it's anyone else, but I feel like Supreme as brand had fallen off. I remember when people with wait in line for Supreme branded bricks, crowbars and other dumb shit. Barely see people wear the brand or talk about it anymore. Supreme started as a flex. Then it became a meme, then it became seen as a posertry hard brand. And now it's dead. If you're spotted in something Supreme, you'll be either suspected of buying knockoffs, or seen as a latecomer. Flash in the pan brand that flew too close to the sun. Depends. How much are Cabbage Patch dolls going for these days? Not much. You can't even make coleslaw out of them. Sports cards. Early 90s. Still have them collecting dust somewhere. And the stupid thing is, as a kid, I had 4 Wayne Gretzky rookie cards. That would have been worth a fortune now. I had a bunch of his rookie cards. They were used to make a motor noise in the spokes of my bicycle. Stupid, stupid, stupid. My Star Trek collector plates. You wait, they will be worth a fortune one day. I have the complete set of Topps 1989 baseball cards that are worth less than I paid for them in '89. Always loved the disclaimer for all of the collectibles they used to advertise in the Sunday newspaper supplement. Not all smiling pink pottery bunny rabbits will appreciate in value, or something close to that. Commemorative coins from the Franklin Mint. Pretty much everything. Collectibles become valuable when very few people are buying and preserving them. For example, comic books and baseball cards in the 1960s. Once they become seen as an investment, it's too late to make any real money. Dolls, specifically World Collection. My grandmother bought so many in the early 80s thinking it would fund college. Nobody wants Shirley Temples and Elvis dolls 20 years later. They've been collecting dust ever since. Basically anything on TV marketed as a collectible. POGs, Beanie Babies, any and every collectible plate. Bear, whatever your old aunt likes to buy and has a million of. Baseball cards. They were going hit at 88 minus 91 or so. I worked for a store that would get them in, off but a box for 30 and go sell it to a card shop for 100. It was great for that short while. I saved a couple cases of different boxes and assumed it would pay for my kids' college. I sold them in 2019 for less than I paid for them. Special issue US. State quarters sets. I just posted this comment. I had a coworker who bought every coin that came into the store. Most of them. Don't go into collecting like it's a long-term investment. Only do it if you actually enjoy it and have disposable income for that. I think it's a common trope that if something is sold as a collectible, it's not going to be worth much after a while. Pretty much anything people are buying to collect. Old comics, toys and cards were worth a lot because no one was buying them to collect them, so good condition examples were few and far between. Those being sold for big money introduced this idea of collecting as an investment, and now there are millions of people out there buying up multiples of everything fun, thinking they're into some easy money. Toys, comics, cards, plushes, whatever are now, at best, just a bubble ready to burst. Most of them sold are kept in mint condition, unopened or sealed in graded cases. Good condition examples are the norm. No longer a rarity, and any value they have is purely speculative. The only people standing to make any money are scalpers, graders, and maybe shop owners. The knock-on effect is that if you're interested in those things just because you like the thing, you're screwed. Stock is snapped up by collectors and scalpers as soon as it hits store shelves, and you're out of luck unless you want to pay inflated second-hand, bubble-supported prices or join in on the rat race. Those things that were once fun and affordable are now just an overpriced hustle.